made a crazy risk, a gamble, and it's about to pay off.
Like the way it's filmed, the way it's been done, the performances just lead you with this anxiety that always just it just feels like it's there.
And I think it's about this addiction to risk. That's what it's about. It's like it's the thrill of that risk, I think. I have to say, I was really shaken by the ending of the movie. I wasn't expecting it at all.
Hello and welcome back to Meaning Behind the Movies, the movie podcast where we discuss and analyse different films. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Safdie Brothers movie Uncut Gems. But before we do that, Ramzan, how have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. I think in our group recently we've been talking a lot about the concept of time, which is something I've been interested in, actually. So I think it's been quite interesting, basically talking about kind of which tense we think is the best, the past, present, or the future. So we had some interesting discussions surrounding that, and that also stemmed from some which I was thinking a week or two ago, that we live in like all tenses at the same time. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about recently.
Wait,
which
what?
I thought was
Explain that a bit more, please. I don't really understand.
Yeah. I don't think you were here when I was talking about it. Yeah. So basically, I said that I think that we all live in three tenses at the same time. In that, like, how you are in the present is massively influenced by is undoubtedly influenced by your past.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how you are, what you want to do, what you think, like, it influences your actions in the present. Then obviously you're in the present, so what you're doing, like your task at hand, but also what your aims are for the future, what your outlook for the future heavily influences on how you perceive your current situation to be, if that makes sense. Like someone who doesn't has hardly any kind of hopes or anything for the future, or no vision, or even a bad vision, the way they are in the present, like whether even down to like their mood and stuff, I think it affects that. Whereas for us, like knowing, for example, I think it's a huge luxury for us knowing that we're doing medicine, going into a career. Whereas I feel like for some people, for example, that's a big uncertainty and it affect how they feel in the present. Do you see what I mean?
No, and I completely understand what you mean. And I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about how a lot of men, like the idea of the modern man, and how I think they were saying how one of the loneliest group of people is men in their like 30s, and how a lot of fear amongst this group of people is about the uncertainty of their future, and where they're actually going, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, that's
nowadays.
really interesting.
So I think we are kind of secluded from that group of people because of the fact that we can pretty much almost see the end of our career path.
Yeah.
We know that there's a progression and there's a ladder there, and there's there is comfort that comes from that.
Yeah,
you're right
exactly. Yeah, because it's also pre-structured. There's no kind of like risk in the traditional sense, where you're applying for things which you might not get. There's always, of course, you might not get it the first time, but we guaranteed a job as a doctor, pretty much, which I think acts like a big source of mental security.
Yeah. I mean, we did want to stop talking about medicine in these episodes, but it always comes back to it. But no, I think you're right. I definitely agree. But a bit on a different topic. Something that I was thinking about this week was more of a question I'll pose to you. Do you think certain character traits, in specific, I was thinking about creativity. Do you think that has a heritable component or like a genetic component to it, or do you think it's purely from your environment?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would say, I would say that I don't think it is that inherited.
Really?
Yeah, just because some of the people who I imagine as being some of the greatest of, all time, although, nowadays you do have a lot of things where, a parent will be, superstars or whatever. The parent will be in acting or whatever, music, and then the child will. In that case, in most of those cases, I don't really feel like the kids, for example, Billy Ray Cyrus and Miley Cyrus. I wouldn't really say like
the prime
Miley
example.
Cyrus is like a massively creative person or anything like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at historical people like, you know, Van Gogh in terms of his art, or other artists, or like movie makers or directors, or musicians, classic musicians, Freddie Mercury or what have you, like their parents are just normal.
I guess I was more the examples that more come to my mind is certain directors, for example, the Coen brothers, like their siblings. Even the movie that we're going to review today, the Safdie Brothers, yeah,
that's true.
The Matrix was directed by two brothers as well. Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan Nolan is a writer in Hollywood as well. So there are like a lot of, and even in acting, like Jake Gyllenhaal and Maggie Gyllenhaal. So there's a lot of brothers and sisters in Hollywood. But I don't know if is it from just the fact that they grew up in the same household, and so it's the environment that created that crafted that creativity, as opposed to inheriting something from their parents.
Yeah, I would think it would be their environment, because I think the creativity and stuff, that sort of stuff, it comes a lot more from thinking or things that sometimes just come to you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think because I think this is also something we discussed before about how when you overthink something, I think it reduces your creativity. That's one thing I found, that I wouldn't say I'm a massively creative person, but when I think too hard about something, I can't get any insights into something that are that good. But when I let it just come to me a bit more naturally, it does. Whether that's genetic, I'm not too sure, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's probably multifaceted. I think there's probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting if there was work done in that field and you could isolate like a creativity gene or something.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my thought of the day.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I suppose on to the topic at hand.
Yep.
So, as Zayn mentioned already, we are going to be talking about Uncut Gems by the Safdie Brothers. So a quick introduction and like plot synopsis very briefly. So the movie opens at an Ethiopian mine where a worker is injured whilst two other miners find a precious black opal in the rock. Forward on to 2012, we see Howard Ratner, a Jewish-American jeweler who is addicted to gambling and in debt to his brother-in-law, Arno. He's also due to divorce his wife, Dina, soon after Passover. The next thing we know, NBA basketball player Kevin Garnett turns up at Howard's jewelry store. Howard shows him a black opal, which was the one found by the Ethiopian miners, which KG is immediately struck by and says he wants to keep it for the night for good luck with his game. Howard then spends a considerable amount of time trying to retrieve the black opal back, which is due for auction. Meanwhile, he's also being chased by goons who are trying to retrieve the money that he owes to Arno, including turning up to his daughter's school play. KG eventually returns the opal but says he wishes to buy it. Howard refuses, but after a backfired plan at the auction house, he sells it to KG. With that money, he bets it all on KG's game that night, to the anger of the loan shark goons, whom he traps in the man-trap of his store. The gamble pays off, but as soon as he lets the goons free, an angered goon called Phil shoots him in the face, kills Arno, and they loot the store. So, Zayn, what was your thoughts going into this movie? I remember it was something we discussed that we were looking forward to it. So do you mind just telling me a bit more about that?
So my thoughts going into this movie, I was quite excited. I think there was a lot that I was hoping for. A kind of return to form in a way for Adam Sandler. He's been making a few good movies recently. So there was the Merowich Stories a few years ago, and then this coming up as well. And I've always known that in his bag he has the ability to give a really great performance from previous films, even from a while ago. So the trailer got me really hyped for that. And also the directors behind the movie. So I'd seen Good Time, which is the first movie from the Safdie Brothers. Yeah. And what I was hoping for was a very intense, drama type movie. And I think it absolutely delivered on all of those fronts. This movie just it gave me just anxiety throughout. Like the way it's filmed, the way it's been done, the performances just lead you with this anxiety that always just feels like it's there. And I think one of the key things that leads to that is the way the dialogue is done.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's very unique. I can't really think of an example that's done it before or that has done it well, where the dialogue is basically them just shouting at each other, and you can't really understand what each character is saying, which normally would be a bad thing, but in this situation it works because the way it's shot and the way it's made, it gives you the context of what's happening, and then everything else just kind of leads you into one direction, if that makes sense. So yeah, that was mine. I guess I went a bit beyond the question, so that was my expectation and then my impression of the film.
Yeah, I totally agree actually with the speaking and the dialogue. I thought the dialogue in this movie was so good, and I thought it felt so real actually as well, because I think even the dialogue between, for example, in one of the scenes where between Howard and his kind of mistress, for example, those scenes with their dialogue I thought was really, really good, really interesting. But not only that, I think the dialogue in the movie, for example, with the characters, for example, in the store, is one that's really chaotic. I think it's so chaotic that sometimes it just seems so noisy. Like in that store, you know, when Kevin Garnett is in it in the beginning, it just feels overwhelming sometimes, and including like this movie has also I think the highest number of F words in any film. It's like 450 or something.
Wow.
So and I think again that really adds to the pace of the movie, one that feels like, and again gets you into Adam Sandler's character of this. It just seems it's this really fast-paced, chaotic, anxiety-inducing lifestyle that I thought of as having it's like a lifestyle of like big peaks, big lows type thing, and that's what gambling is really about.
Exactly, yeah.
But I was really, really looking forward to the movie. The trailer I thought was so, you know, when like a movie has a good trailer, I thought the trailer of this movie was amazing.
Yeah.
It seemed flash. I really liked the flashiness, the colours, and the soundtrack to the trailer I thought was really nice as well. So, and I totally agree. I think the movie completely delivered on that. I haven't seen the Safdie Brothers' other films. This is the first one I've seen, but I was really impressed.
Yeah. That is the same. It gives you a sense of anxiety as well. And that one's a bit more shot a bit differently, where there's a lot more of just these really harsh close-ups on the characters, but this has some of that element as well, where it's like just cut onto like you can't see the top and the bottom of someone's face, and it's just their expression, and it's just full frame. And there's a few elements of that here as well, but not as much. But just moving on from what you said about like the highs and the lows, I think what was so good about Adam Sandler's performance was he encapsulated perfectly like what a addict, or specifically what a gambling addict is. Like he's just always chasing the rush. He loves living within the chaos. Even like any moment of like peace, he just can't live with it. Like he has to go back and create more chaos. Felt somewhat unnecessary. The main thing is he doesn't actually care about money. I felt like he doesn't. She was in the movie. Even when he has money in his hands, he can't keep it. He has to give it away. He has to gamble. There's someone who he can go and place the bets for. And we're kind of cutting to the end of the movie, but when he's sold the opal, but I felt besides that there wasn't much that she contributed in terms of the overall story. He has the money to pay off the debt collectors. She's the reason he'd rather gamble it and just risk it against his wife. But I think it would have been better if his addiction served that purpose, because his family don't really actually seem to care about his addiction. Did you get that impression? I don't know if that's intentional, like as in they're just so sick of it or whatever. But
I think that they care more about the fact that I think he doesn't give them any attention. That's what it's about. It's like
yeah.
More the real feeling of risk. I think he just wouldn't care about. He's just that much.
Sure.
I don't think I'll necessarily.
Yeah. I guess because they're well off, they don't really see the effect. It's not really affecting them, so they're not really too concerned. But I think if that played a bigger role in terms of why there was a issue with his family, it would have shown that. It would have confirmed or like dopamine rush that you get after the addiction winning more. Like he's still not changing his ways. He sees this life as a game, but everything is a game. Everything in his life is just become. And I think everyone in his life is a part of that game. So I mean, he puts his family at risk because he sees one of the goons when he's locked up make a phone call, and he's worried that someone's going to be sent to go and kill his kid or kill his. But all the scenes between them were really good in terms of like when they're arguing. The lying as well. He's like a compulsive liar, just to either cover up to the people that are after him, or if he's lying to his family, and it's just all in service of this one aim of just gambling. So his whole life basically revolves around that, and that's another thing that we mentioned in our histories is their life. The main focus of their life is the addiction. Thank you everyone for watching this episode of Meaning Behind the Movie. We hope you enjoyed. If there are any movies, so what did you think of analyze? Please do let us know. You mentioned it in your opening. What did you think of the ending of the film, the way it ended?
I have to say, I was really shaken by the ending of the movie. I wasn't expecting it at all. I thought that, like, it was just done so perfectly. Like, the fact that he won, and then seeing those guys, their reactions as well, and being on this journey with the character, even though he's not. I wouldn't say he's an anti-hero, but he's a bit of a sleazy guy, but you're on his side still.
Yeah,
You've been through all this stuff with him.
I was on his side until he gambled the money he got from the Opal. And when they're like hanging him out the window, I'm like, good, you deserve it.
Yeah, and then when it just happened so quickly, like without any warning, and it's like all of that winning and all that journey is for nothing.
Yeah.
And that I think again encapsulates that whole lifestyle in general. That, you know, he sacrificed his family, all that time with his family, which I think is the main thing he did sacrifice. But in the end, when he got that money, he was killed.
Yeah. And I think the goon who killed him, he basically saw that. What he realized was that this man's insane, firstly, or he's severely addicted. And even with that winning money, like we said, he doesn't care about money. He's probably just going to gamble it again. He's not going to use it to pay them off, because he already had the money to pay them off and he gambled it. So it's just going to be a cycle.
Yeah.
So he thought, you know what, there's no point in going through this. Just kill him.
Yeah. And
then he just cuts his losses by robbing whatever's in the store and then just leaves.
Yeah.
So I think that was always going to be the uninevitable end for him, unless he changed his ways somehow. But he was stuck in his addiction. And that's what he was going to meet that fate at some point. If it wasn't him, it would have been someone else. There were a few people after him. We see that when he walks down the street, there's people constantly coming up to him, like, who he owes money to.
Yeah.
And these ones just happened to be the one to end it, really.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the thing is it shows the fact that he is killed in the end. It shows how the focus of the movie isn't about his search for the money. Like, even though he gets all that money, it's not a happy ending.
Yeah. Because
that isn't what the issue is. The fundamental issue is, you know, his addiction to gambling.
Yeah.
And that and I would say, like, this movie is tragic in that sense. It's like a typical, like, tragedy movie.
Yeah.
Where the ending is just really sad.
Yeah. But we do see at one point when he's having it's at Passover. I guess that's what the Passover was, when he's actually with his family and he's spending time with his, like, in-laws or whoever, and when he has a talk with his wife and he's like, I just want to I'm done with, you know, because he's having an affair, I'm done with her, I just want to be with you and all that. That he is starting to show regret, and that he is wanting to change his ways, but he's just trapped. He's trapped by his own addiction. Yeah. Which, like you said, it's a tragedy. It's quite sad. Yeah. That being the case.
And the thing is, then the moment that he gets that money again, is he just goes. It's like a drug.
Yeah.
Like, he gets so excited about it, like, and it. Yeah. How ultimately it kind of is so destructive. In all cases, addiction of many different sorts.
And he gives an explanation to it, a kind of an explanation to why he is that way, or why he acts that way when he's with Kevin Garnett in their office. Yeah. And Kevin Garnett, he says to him, like, he's like, ever since I met you, you're not straightforward. Like, everything you do, you just do it backwards, basically. Yeah. And he's like, he says to him, he's like, he shows him, like, some statistics about the people who are betting against him on the game, that Kevin Garnett's not going to win the game or whatever. And he's like, these people doubt you, well, I'm trying to prove the people who doubt me wrong, or something like that. Yeah. And I think just in his head, it's like a justification for his actions, and this, you know, he's leaving his family and just risking everything, gambling his money. He's in his own head, he's trying to convince himself more so than Kevin Garnett, probably.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing which I was actually thinking of is, what did you think about so they actually won an award for the cinematographer of the movie, this Persian guy. He won an award for it. And one thing I picked up on the movie, which I mentioned a bit earlier, was the colours in the movie. Yeah. I thought the colours and the flashiness, you know, it's so, like, alluring, and in that sense I feel like it's almost like a representation of how he sees the world, how Howard sees the world. Like, it's so flashy, enticing, mesmerizing, like all these, like, really flashy things, the colors, that it almost seems not real.
Yeah.
And I think the start of the movie especially feels like that. The start of the movie, for me, it makes it seem like that opal or something is almost like a mythical object.
Yeah.
Because it's like in the ground, and then, you know, there's that scene where it goes through the diamond.
It's at the end as well, when it goes through the bullet hole in his face.
In his face, yeah. And I think that also gives like a different flavour to the movie. The fact that Kevin Garnett he's just so obsessed with this opal. It's like it's almost like has like an hypnotic effect on him. And I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah. So on that page, what did you think? Do you think there was any symbolism behind what the opal itself actually represents? Do you think it was meant to be like a mystical thing, or do you think it was just something else?
I think it is just a representation of. It's difficult. I'm not sure, because in a way, Adam Sandler's character, he didn't actually care about the opal in the same way Kevin Garnett did. Adam Sandler just wanted to sell it so he could get money, whereas Kevin Garnett saw it as something which had a power to it. But he was so mesmerized by it. So I don't know. Part of me thinks, is it like a representation of something larger, like, you know, this kind of societal view of all these kind of flashy consumerist type things, and how that affects people? I'm not too sure. What did you think?
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely agree with that. I kind of saw it as similar to how what the Rock represents in the movie Parasite.
Yeah,
the one that we've obviously discussed. But how it's like, it's something that it's a false not omen, but like something that you think is positive, but actually it's just going to bring you even worse luck. It's just going to have the opposite effect.
Yeah,
because as soon as it comes into his life, into Adam Sandler's life, it just derails completely.
Yeah.
Not that it was probably on the right tracks to begin with, but things just don't seem to end well for him, at least anyway.
Yeah,
and a lot of that kind of surrounds the opal in a way. So I think that's maybe possibly another kind of like reason why it's in the movie.
Yeah, and also the fact how it links back to almost like blood diamond type thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because the film opens with you seeing this guy's leg, this Ethiopian guy's leg completely like smashed open.
Yeah.
And also it's interesting that Ethiopian Jewish as well. I think it's quite interesting, that link, because also him and his family are Jewish as well. And how those kind of blood diamonds, in a way, have led to like ultimately him being killed in the end.
Yeah.
And I think again it's kind of like linked to Parasite, that this object actually, it's not literally cursed or anything, but it's almost like a form of karma, or, you know, like outer force of nature, that because, you know, these kind of diamonds which people are dying for or whatever is being used in this way of these flashy goods or whatever, auctioned for millions of thousands of hundreds of thousands of pounds or whatever, actually bring a curse with it.
No, I think you're spot on with that. And that opening scene of the movie is a perfect kind of encapsulation of what the movie is about, because you have like, it's all based on context of what's going on. There's no actual line of dialogue, but you understand perfectly what's happening. Like, you see that they're dragging an injured man out of the cave, and they're all screaming at what appears to be like the Chinese overseers of their work. Because obviously China has a lot of involvement in Africa at the moment in terms of mining and
resources.
And they're obviously like upset about this. It seems like they're upset because this has happened, probably because of terrible working conditions, and that's their fault. And that's all, you understand all of that without a single line of dialogue. And it's just this chaos, this craziness that's going on. And that leads straight into the movie where we're taken to Adam Sandler, and that's his life. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head where you said, like, yeah, he gets all this suffering has happened for him to get this opal, only for him to, like, he doesn't value it at all. He just wants to sell it for money. Yeah. And his payback on that is that he gets killed.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely, after this, really, really want to watch that other film which you mentioned. And yeah, I thought, I haven't been like, after watching it, I was actually really moved by it, that scene, just how tragic it was. And I think that a lot of people really don't like these types of films. It's got on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got really high critic review, 93%, but really low audience review.
What was your?
It's like 55%.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
And I think apparently it's because like people just find it uncomfortable or whatever.
Oh
like,
yeah, that's definitely. I can see that.
But
that's
the
the
thing
intention.
is that's the point.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a time now with film where like so many films and Oscars or whatever. This last year was a bit different. Because Joker came out, but in general, if you look at the trend, a lot of them are like these like feel-good films where you leave and there's like some kind of ideal ending which you really like.
That's not reality.
But it's not reality, and I think it's really important. Kind of how we also discussed in First Reformed, that you can't you see the tragic nature of humankind and of people's experience as well, and it's so important. The fact that it makes you feel so uncomfortable and so shaken at the end and so unpleasant is like a testament to how good the movie is.
Exactly, yeah. That's really strange that people didn't like it because it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Interesting. But on the topic of didn't like, is there anything you didn't like about this movie?
I think another criticism which I saw, but I actually think it worked, was how there was a lot of like inclusion of so many characters. Like for example, the black, I can't remember. So the black guy who also works at the
one who has his watches in the
who has his watches, and there's also like those two guys who come back at the end, for example, trying to get their money and what have you. There's a lot of these other kind of random characters, and I think there was some criticism that it felt like these characters weren't really built up or anything. Okay. But for me, I thought it as all these characters being involved is all part of this very like rapid, intense lifestyle. It seems chaotic, like, and that's the point of it, really.
Yeah.
And also it makes it feel more real. I think it feels more like you are in his shoes, and that's what I thought. It worked very well. You could really experience what it was like being him. This kind of rushing between people and what have you. I don't really know, actually. Again, both of us are really bad at criticizing movies. Yeah. But I can't actually think of one. I think they pulled it off really well. Okay. What would you say?
I did have a criticism of this movie, and my criticism of this movie would be that I felt the Julia character felt somewhat unnecessary to a degree, where I felt like she was in the movie mainly so that at the end of the movie there's someone who he can go and place the bets for him, and they can have that scene at the end, which was really great. But I felt besides that there wasn't much that she contributed in terms of the overall story. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's the reason that there's a rift between him and his family, particularly his wife. But I think it would have been better if his addiction served that purpose, because his family don't really actually seem to care about his addiction. Yeah. Did you get that impression? I don't know if that's intentional, like as in they're just so sick of it or whatever, but
I think like what they care more about is the fact that he doesn't give them any attention. I think that's like through his conversation with his daughter you can see that it's more this feeling by his family that he just doesn't care about them that much, and or that they're secondary. But I don't think it's necessary. Like I would agree, it's not because of his addiction.
Yeah. I guess because they're well off, they don't really see the effect. It's not really affecting them, so they're not really too concerned. Yeah. But I think if that played a bigger role in terms of why there was a issue with his family, it would have shown that, it would have confirmed or like reaffirmed the addiction even more. Like he's still not changing his ways. But yeah, that's just a very minor point. And I think overall, it didn't ruin anything for me.
I'm just trying to think about it now, about her, what I think she did.
But all the scenes between them were really good in terms of like when they're arguing and when he throws the milkshake in her face, stuff like that. It does add to the movie in that way. Yeah,
I would agree. But yeah, I can't think of anything immediately. So on that note, I think both of us agree that this movie was very good. So yeah, do you want to sign us off?
I will do. Thank you everyone for watching this episode of Meaning Behind the Movie. We hope you enjoyed. If there are any movies you would want us to review or analyse, please do let us know. Otherwise, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.